We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
What's pro football focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Pitt.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Do you not understand that they are that way because you're Joe Flacco?
And you just like to discredit things that people deserve credit for.
That you can't possibly be expected to defend that.
Talk about the game, Sam.
So,
Who cares about what people think about us?
Yeah, I like football season, all the things that go with it.
Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson here. What are we talking about today?
I don't know. What about what's on your head?
It's my hair.
Sure. That's one way of describing it. We did it.
It's the Fro Show. Welcome into the Fro Show.
You said if we raised $1,000, you would rock the Fro for an episode of the PFF NFL podcast.
I did.
And here it is.
And we did far more than we actually did $1,150. Thanks to everybody. Here it is.
It's
my real
spectacular.
Hair. Feels like I could have done better. It's the first time in a while doing it. There's a little meat on the bone. We left there.
I mean, I don't think people appreciate, like, how many, you'd say 4 inches, 5 inches of extra height that's giving you? 6 maybe?
Hey, I'm 7'3".
Right.
Yeah.
So I was like,
doesn't cut it.
Yeah, if anyone remembers the old Naked Gun movies, there's like a flashback scene where they were all in the 70s and O.J. Simpson has like a fro that's 8 foot wide, can't get through the door. That's you coming into the studio. And you've been in here for like, 20 minutes now, and I've basically only just stopped crying.
You haven't stopped laughing.
I mean, I thought there was a real chance I was going to have to do the entire podcast just looking at the camera because every time I glance up at you, I just break my arse laughing.
Yeah, that's how we do it.
It's amazing.
So yeah, we got said I'd pick my hair out, have a little fun.
Yeah.
You like it? Welcome back, by the way.
Thanks.
I said, when I was teasing the show, not my hair, I said Sam likes to make fun of my appearance and all that, so here's more fodder. Have fun. So it all happened.
If you usually listen to the podcast, that's great. We appreciate you. We love our listeners, but you need to make it to YouTube and see this. You have to. I don't care how you normally consume the podcast. You have
at least check in.
You absolutely require video evidence of this thing on your head.
Never fear. Our friend Josh Norris has already tweeted it out.
Beautiful.
So it's making its rounds.
It's
making
amazing.
its rounds on the interwebs already.
It is incredible.
So yeah, I've always had this potential. Been sitting on it for a few years, but here we are. What?
I just every now and again it hits you again. It's not the kind of thing you can just see and let go.
I wanted to get up my
every now and again.
PFF
it's just
baseball cap and just kind of like
perch it on the top.
Rest it on top. Yeah, could never pitch like this. It was it's difficult to pitch and you got to like stitch your hat into the hair and I don't know how they did it in the 70s.
So what's the recovery process now from this?
I haven't. It's been a while and I don't know what it's gonna look like. You definitely got to wet it, shower.
I was trying to decide
shampoo a little bit and then get it back on track.
Yeah, I was trying to decide which is the funnier, right? This or the time you went for an ill-advised haircut to somebody that was ill-prepared to deal with it.
The Katie haircut?
The Katie haircut.
Yeah.
And you came back looking like Shirley Temple.
Yeah.
Honestly, they're both amongst the hardest I've laughed in years. But I can't. I'm not sure I can separate.
I feel better about this one because I know I'm one wash away from getting back to whatever normal is in my life.
That's true. Yeah, it's probably easier to fix this than the Katie haircut.
Took weeks to grow back the Katie haircut.
That was a more permanent catastrophe.
Speaking of, I do need to see Liz, the real my real stylist.
You should send her a picture of this, like when you're booking in.
Oh, I should, yeah. Liz, what can you do with this?
I need some help taming this.
What can you do with this here? Anyway, thanks to everybody because we said we'd have some fun. I am 7'3".
Somebody just tweeted that you look like a member of the Jimi Hendrix Experience.
I look like a lot of things.
Which is absolutely true, by the way. You know the way like all of Jimmy's band is like white with giant afros? That's you. You could be in Jimmy's band.
Early Andre the Giant I've gotten as well.
Early Andre the Giant.
Early Andre before he tamed his hair.
Can you play an instrument? Can we get you in the Jimmy Experience?
There's no chance.
Okay.
My oldest, Harry, whose hair is on a similar trajectory as mine. Said,
As is
Dad,
his
you
height,
look stupid.
by the way.
As his height.
Yeah.
He's a monster. He said, Dad, you look stupid. So
I mean,
kids aren't liking it.
He's not lying.
All right, well, I figured I'd get at least an honest opinion from them.
Yeah.
So here we are. We're going to talk some NFL at some point here.
I mean, sure. Yeah, we can give it a go, but
anyway, thanks to everybody who donated. Again, it all goes to Heritage House, and Kelly and I will match that $1,150. Donate to Heritage House, faith-based program here in Cincinnati, giving back to men with addiction, actually helping them fight addiction. So I'm excited about that. And again, I was more than willing to pick my hair out and have some fun. And we'll talk a little NFL here. If you guys haven't listened to my solo episode, though, that was the dream. Sam, have you listened to it yet?
I haven't. I meant to. I've got it downloaded. I haven't had a chance to actually listen to it yet to see what a mess you made of the podcast.
We had a great interview with Brad Spielberger. Talked to him NFL draft trades. I thought Brad did a great job there. I went team by team with optimism. I gave a reason for optimism for all 32 teams. Straight monologue style. Only stuttered like 8 to 100 times. But we made it through. It's not easy being by yourself.
It's not. I mean, I thought you overreached, frankly. I thought it was way too optimistic.
I think we executed. And then we pivoted, hard pivot, to mid-90s Jaguars.
Yeah.
And we did about 10 minutes on the Jags. And feedback was wonderful.
Have you checked the analytics where you can see the drop-off?
I need to check.
Listeners?
I need to see if people
did that
tuned out
tumble?
there. All I know is the feedback was incredible. YouTube comments, the tweets, everything. People love the Jags discussion. So we the
data doesn't necessarily back that up.
Yeah, but that's natural. That's not below expectation.
It is. It got down to like 45% by the end of it.
That's to expectation. That's
35, in fact, at the end of it. When we're both here, we stay up at 80. You managed to lose almost everybody over the course of you sitting here on your own.
It's completely to expectation.
Now we have to make sure they all come back because they all left. Everybody left. Except 35% hardcore followers.
This will bring them back.
Steve fans.
This will bring them back. Wait till the drop off after they see the fro. People are just going to tune in, see this, or at least on YouTube, see it and go. So, anyway, I had a fun show without you. You had a little vacation in Kentucky. I'm going on vacation.
Turns out it's a lot larger than you think it is.
So you thought you were taking like a little 1 hour trip?
Oh, I just didn't. It was like a cabin in the woods in Kentucky, right? I'm literally 5 minutes from Kentucky, the border. So I'm like, how big can Kentucky be? I've seen it on a map. It's a small state. There's literally no line you can draw through Kentucky where it felt like it was beyond the realms of like, I can drive to that in a few hours. You know what I mean? So I never even checked. And it turns out it was like 4.5 hours away. So a little bit longer than I was planning on traveling, but we got there.
Is it bigger?
Camaro just eats up the miles, Oh
yeah.
Get it out in the open road, just you're there.
Is Kentucky bigger than Ireland?
Probably, yeah.
Probably by a lot.
Not by a well, okay, maybe a lot.
Yeah, so you I'm glad you're back. So I'm taking vacation next week. I'll be gone, but look at Josh Norris sending people to the feed here. Thank you, Josh. I'm taking vacation next week. What are you going to do without me here?
It turns out it's 8,000 square miles bigger than Ireland. Yeah, which 40,000 to 32,000 is quite a large percentage.
Yeah, thank you. So, what are you going to do without me here?
So we're getting Austin in on Monday.
Okay.
Austin Gale from the 2 for 1 podcast, PFF podcast. He will be getting promoted to the big leagues. I won't make the same joke again because you already got hit with it the last time. But Austin will be in your chair on Monday.
Not relatable.
No. And we'll see how that goes. Maybe you'll get Wally pipped. Maybe you won't make it back.
There's no way.
Look, Austin.
How could you replace this?
Austin. Oh, that's true. Well, he's got the stash. Ideally, what you want to be able to do is combine.
He can grow this.
If you can combine Austin's stash with your fro, now you're cooking up something special.
Well, yeah, unlikely.
So anyway, he's going to be there Monday. Thursday's show TBD. Haven't got there yet.
All right. Well, we could record a double here today, so we could have like an extra Fro show out of nowhere. It'll be here next Thursday, wearing the same thing and everything.
Yeah.
Let me know. Let me know at the end of the show. All right, let's talk some NFL. Somebody tuned in to listen to the NFL, and again, if you're listening from an audio standpoint, I think at least check out the YouTube feed if you want to see the Fro. It's the Fro show. We also named it biggest remaining question marks of the 2021 offseason, so we just need some more NFL to talk about here.
Okay.
Aaron Rodgers, all the high-end quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers, what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson, where he ends up. Do you want to talk about the news, though? Eric Fisher signing with the Colts after all my criticisms of the Colts and not filling that left tackle need.
Yeah.
They bring Eric Fisher in.
It's a very interesting approach the Colts have taken to this left tackle spot all the way through the offseason. We've been talking about them essentially playing chicken with the position. So first of all, to level set, the reason in particular that we've been saying that the Colts have this desperate need at left tackle is because they made this big trade for Carson Wentz. And Carson Wentz, whatever you think he is in terms of 2017 Carson Wentz, 2019, 2020, what Wentz you're going to get, Wentz is one of the most pressure-susceptible quarterbacks in the NFL. Like his PFF grade drops 40-something points from clean pocket to pressure dropbacks on a fairly consistent basis. And it's one of the highest drops you're going to find from any quarterback. So all quarterbacks suffer when you pressure them, but Wentz suffers more than most. So for a guy that's already, teetering on the brink of maybe complete collapse, a first-round pick heading to Philadelphia if he plays enough snaps, you desperately need to make sure this guy's environment is fantastic, and a bad left tackle is not going to help that. Like we saw with Baker Mayfield when he had to start worrying about his left tackle every single play, his play drove off a cliff as well. So the Colts really needed to make this statement that with Anthony Castonzo gone, we have left tackle locked up. The rest of this offensive line is good. Let's just nail that. So, at the start of the offseason, we're like, honestly, they should just throw all the money at Trent Williams. Like, just lock it up, make sure it's good, and then deal with it later. They've got the money. They can make it happen. They can then spend their first-round pick on Equity Pay or whoever they want and not have to worry about it. They didn't do that. When we were like, well, they're going to be taking a left tackle somewhere in the draft, whether it's the first round, whether it's the second round, and how that dynamic plays out, they didn't. They didn't do it in either of them. And then I said, well, Russell Okung is still out there. Villanueva was for a while, but then you got him signed, whatever commission you got for that. And
it's in the mail.
Yeah. So then it's like, well, okay, Okung's out there. Charles Leno gets released from the Bears. Everybody on Twitter immediately is like, well, the Colts are picking up the phone. They didn't go for Charles Leno. They didn't go for Okung. They end up signing Eric Fisher, who had a career year last year for Kansas City, but tore his Achilles in the AFC Championship game. And not only is that as late as you can basically possibly get an injury, and obviously that impacts your return timetable for this season, but it's one of the most devastating injuries you can get in terms of getting back 100% right away. Like if you break a leg or you tear a routine, in quotation marks, knee ligament or something, you're back. You're week one, you're back, you're okay. An Achilles is not the same thing. An Achilles is a thing that lingers or takes a while to get back to 100%. So now you're like, well, they were talking about how they're okay with Sam Tevi starting at left tackle. Sam Tevi's probably still starting at left tackle for a while, and then what kind of Eric Fisher are you getting back once he makes it back onto the field?
A lot of people talking about my hair, so it's tough to concentrate.
It's almost hard to believe, yeah.
It is. It's hard to believe. So, and I did the study on this offseason, tried to put it into wins above replacement, some numbers, right? And I wasn't saying go get Trent Williams. I was actually saying that more as a joke because I really wanted to see Trent Williams.
I was saying it.
But him and Quentin Nelson on the same side would just be incredible.
I just
think
think
that would be awesome.
They had the capacity to make that happen, and it would have answered, not only would it have answered the problem, it would have meant you could just forget about it, right?
But
done.
And they've had money to play around with. But I went through all of the scenarios, and I said, if you're just trying to maximize wins above, if you're just trying to maximize wins, here are your options. Find an elite left tackle. Trent Williams would have been the guy. That's your best. Second best would have been actually find an elite left guard and move Quentin Nelson to left tackle based off our projections, which is a little bit more volatile, but that actually would have been good. The third best option was a mid-tier free agent left tackle, the old average creep back toward average left tackle, which could have been Villanueva, could have been Okung, ends up being Eric Fisher. So I like where they landed. I listened to the Colts post-draft press conference as well. Many questions. What are you laughing at now?
You're just going to have to accept that at some point during this show,
Okay.
multiple points during the show,
okay.
I'm probably just going to start laughing at you.
And
It's nothing personal. It's just that, you can't look at that every now and again and not lose your shit.
because the other thing, I thought you might have been laughing at what I thought was funny during the Chris Ballard press conference, because the Indy media kept asking him about left tackle.
No.
And he would go through, he's like, oh, we feel really good about the 4 players that we have returning, because they have 4 starters back. Left tackle's the only question. And then he would always just say, Sam Tevi's played a lot of football.
Yeah.
That's it. He's just Sam. And then he was like, in winning football. In other words, like, he was the tackle on a winning team, which has nothing to do with how well Sam Tevi played.
Right.
I just thought that was hilarious. All Chris Ballard could say at the press conference was essentially, Sam Tevi's played football. A lot of it.
A lot of it, yeah.
Great. We don't want him starting for us, but he's played football just in case. So it felt like they were in the market for a move. I like the Eric Fisher move. So that brings their offensive line is now Eric Fisher at left tackle, Quentin Nelson, the best guard in the NFL at left guard, Ryan Kelly, good solid center, Mark Lewinsky, who has turned into a good solid right guard, and then Braden Smith, who's been one of the best right tackles in the NFL.
But here's the
now
thing.
they're back. They've crept back to a top 3 offensive line.
But here's the thing, right?
If Fisher's healthy.
Yes, and they've only signed Fisher for 1 year.
I'm assuming that they know, right? That they know he's 17-game schedule. You get an extra week.
Yeah.
I'm assuming they're just saying, maybe we miss a little bit of him in September, and Tevi plays some football for us for a few weeks.
Yeah.
And that's
I think at the minimum you're saying, look, who the hell knows? I'm not a doctor, right? But I would say, look, Sam Tevi's probably playing a month of football for you, and then Eric Fisher comes in. He's the cavalry. My concern is more like, what Eric Fisher are you getting after, I don't want to say rushing him back from an Achilles injury, but getting him back, as soon as you can from an Achilles injury. Like, Eric Fisher was coming off a career year in which his PFF grade was like 80, I think. His, let's say, a sort of generous baseline for him before that was like 75. So if you're talking about a guy that's a 75 caliber player who's now 31 years old, coming off an Achilles, that doesn't feel like a recipe for great left tackle play to me.
Also feels better than Sam Tevi.
Well, that is
leg of Eric Fisher.
possible, yeah. Yes, there is a very real chance that even a hobbled, old, lower than his baseline Eric Fisher is an upgrade over Sam Tevi. But again, like,
No offense to Sam.
I mean, a little bit of offense to Sam. Like, congratulations, you're an NFL player, but you're not a good one, which is.
Welcome back, Sam.
But like, again, so it's the fact that they went after Eric Fisher, knowing all these things. Like, is that a more sure bet than just signing Russell Okung, who could play the whole season and probably play it at a higher level than Eric Fisher's going to get back to?
I mean, Okung's had his own issues, though, from
Okay,
an
but
injury standpoint.
Charles Leno's played every single game for like 94 straight, and most of those have been at a higher level than Eric Fisher, last year aside.
Did he just sign with Washington?
Yes, but he was available at the time when they signed Eric Fisher.
There's more upside with Fisher. He has been a better player.
Right, but he's also coming off an Achilles
I
injury.
understand. Sam Tevi's career grades, he's never graded above 59, and that was his rookie season on 404 snaps. He's played a lot of football, 3,747 snaps per PFF Premium Stats 2.0, all part of PFF Elite. Doesn't come with the afro, though.
God, that's a shame.
What I noticed is I don't have the same equipment for the fro. I used to. Twice in my life, I have been gifted.
You're telling me this is an equipment issue now?
Yeah, it could have been way better. So
Define better. What is better in this scenario?
There's just more. Like, it's the shape is
volume.
Yeah, there's more
Okay.
volume.
So that's our biggest failing
The
here.
shape could be better. Luckily, the back's a little tight.
So
Historically, I would do this, during historically. I would do it like once or twice a year during the baseball season. I'd have some teammates help out, poof it up a little bit.
It's like a team bonding exercise.
It was teamwork.
So as it progresses, and you know the way, like, you first glance at a piece of artwork and you're like, all right, you get the surface appreciation. The longer you stare at it, you pick out the details and you start to figure out the little bits that really
find the
interest you.
details in this
right.
thing?
So here's what my favorite thing is developing, right? Because you're reaching that that stage in life that I've been through where the hair starts to retreat off your head, right? The hairline heads backwards. So the fro doesn't realize that yet, but the hairline is heading underneath it, right?
It is not.
So it's almost looking like a wig or like a helmet that you're just putting on top of the receding hairline. You know,
It's
like
not receding. You compare it to my old froze. It's all right.
The hair is definitely receding. I mean, if you can't see
Anyway,
that, I can't really help you out.
It could twice in my life I have been gifted some like really high end picks. You know, good metal picks that you would pick for the fro. And I just don't have. I don't know where they are anymore. I haven't done this in about 10 years. So I was working with lesser equipment. I feel like it could be better. Or this could be an annual thing. Maybe we'll do it.
I mean, I think it should definitely be an annual thing.
And PFF's in the comments over here saying, trying to get people to say, let's do this forever.
Yeah.
I don't think that'll fly.
I mean, Neil said it's the greatest haircut you've ever had.
Well, I don't trust Neil's judgment on everything.
No, but I mean, you gotta understand where your baseline is for haircuts. I mean, you voluntarily rock.
Neil's also the
Jerry
guy
curl.
that says, look, an average product executed well is fine.
Yeah.
So he doesn't care about excellence. He just cares about the execution. He thinks this is probably executed well.
I mean,
Now Neil appreciates excellence, and this is excellent, right?
it certainly is.
It's
certainly
something.
is. I mean, it might not be excellent in terms of like.
Yeah, I've gone it all, guys. Bob Ross, Andre the Giant. I got it.
Bob Ross isn't a bad one. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Paint the picture here in the wilderness for you.
Yeah, on the window.
So I did this on a road trip one time back in the Pioneer League, Sam.
How did you fit in a car with that?
We're in a bus.
How did you fit in a bus with that?
Bus has higher ceilings. So it was before a bus trip.
But you're 7'3" now.
True.
And back then, when you had some bounce and you weren't receding with the hairline, it'd probably be 7'6".
I don't know, man. I picked it out for the bus trip, whatever. We got to wherever we were, and we get to the hotel, and my hair got caught on the sprinkler at the hotel. So I didn't notice the sprinkler. The fro got caught in the sprinkler, and it was
So every now and again,
hair ripped out.
Every now and again, I get like a brief glimpse into what life must be like as you, and it never happens more than when you go to a hotel. And I don't know what the percentage is, but like there's a good chunk of hotels where the shower, like the head, is at like my shoulder height.
Yeah, right.
And like, look, I'm 5'11".
Who designed this thing?
So if it's at my shoulder height, it's like belly height for you. Like this is not helping anything. And if you're rocking a fro at the time, like how am I even? You gotta be like doubled over to get the fro under the shower attachment. That's just not helpful.
Yeah.
So
it's not always a fro, by the way, but yeah, it's.
But I'm sure you must have
Hotels
given.
aren't great.
Apparently, you've had a fro during some fairly extensive periods of your life. You must have encountered a shower attachment during that time.
Oh yeah, I've stayed in some bad hotels.
Right,
through the years.
which just wouldn't have gone near the fro.
Like belly button height. It's not good.
Yeah.
Not good. Hold on, I need to tweet this out again. Sam just won't stop laughing at me.
Yeah. You see, the great thing about this is that I've now lost enough hair that I can't like be held. There's no reciprocation I can do.
Well,
There's
people
nothing
think
I
you're
can
jealous.
achieve to create that.
People think you're jealous over here. You've never caught your hair in a sprinkler, so feel blessed.
I haven't.
You've never had to deal
no,
with that.
it's true.
Yeah.
I have had glorious flow though back in the day.
Yeah, you do have some.
I could never do fro because it was straight.
You could bring that back like Travolta style in what was the movie? Wasn't he like bald with the ponytail?
bald with the ponytail.
Yeah, somewhere.
I
Anyway,
don't know.
you could do that at some point. Bring a little fake ponytail back or something. Look, if I could fake this, you could fake it.
Yeah.
What else we want to talk about here? NFL stories.
We were going into Aaron Rodgers, right?
Yeah. I was trying to share this out again. This is bad podcasting, but
Well, look,
good.
I mean, anytime you're podcasting with that thing in your head, you're going to have to accept a degree of bad podcasting. But this is why I'm saying, look, if you haven't gone to get video evidence of this, if you're just listening to the podcast, again, appreciate you. Stay here. Don't, unsubscribe or anything. But God, do yourself a favor and go and find this. It's amazing.
I want you to go listen to my show too. I would rate my monologue.
I wouldn't go that far.
I'm trying to get my own show here, a little breakaway. PFF Steve NFL podcast. What have you been holding me down all these years?
I mean, the data doesn't say that. The data, I saw the collapse in the graph the second you got
I didn't
left to
do it.
your own
I should have had
devices.
Brad on at the end, because then he'd be the collapse. Anyway, let's talk Rodgers and where he ends up landing, because this hasn't been discussed enough. I also wanted to talk NFC West. I just think that is going to be a great division. You want to talk about the NFC West?
Okay.
Like, there's a million awesome storylines here. You've got Trey Lance going to the Niners. You've got Stafford being matched up with Sean McVay. You have Kyler Murray in year 3 with Cliff Kingsbury. Pivotal year for both. And Russell Wilson. Is he going to, feel loved? Is Russell Wilson going to be looking for a trade at the end of the season? I think this whole division is the best story in football. This best division story in football.
I don't know where that is, but the Russell Wilson stuff seems to have quietened down, right? It was like Russell Wilson makes his big public statement. The Seahawks immediately do something about it in terms of trading for Gabe Jackson. And now it's, all right, there we go. Fixed. Like, this is why that was our point at the time, right? It's that this seems fairly easy to piece back together.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson has obviously reached the point where he comes out and makes a declarative, like a public complaint. Look, I'm fed up with this crap. However you thought this was going behind the scenes, I'm done with it. I need help. And they maybe they disagreed, but whatever they went, okay, fine, we heard you. Let's start mending this bridge. Let's start healing wounds. And you trade for Gabe Jackson, you extend him, you rework his contract, whatever. You've made a public move, right? We've addressed the offensive line. We hear you, Russ.
That is what resolved things?
100%.
Gabe Jackson.
Yes.
They gave up a 5th rounder.
Well, look, like, what is
for Gabe Jackson, and Russ is like, okay, thanks, guys.
What? Yeah, because they made a big move, big-ish move. The big move in turn was like taking on his contract, not the 5th round pick, right? Because the Raiders, remember, were basically cutting this guy, and Seattle traded for him, but they traded for a sizable contract and reworked it. Like, that was a public move to assuage public concerns. And remember, this is a team that basically
bottom 5.
The point was never, and I don't even think Russ wants this. The point is not like, I need the Indianapolis offensive line in front of me. I need the best offensive line in the NFL, and it's time to make that happen, right? The point was simply, all right, whether or not you've done this consciously or not, you have not thrown a ton of resources financially at the offensive line, and Russ is unhappy. And he even admitted in like the statement that he made.
You photoshopped this already?
I didn't. Rick did. I just.
Oh, Rick sent that in?
The statements that he made to the Dan Patrick Show, even in that, he was like, and look, some of it's on me. I've got to be better and blah, blah, right? So it's not like he was saying, look, the offensive line sucks. It needs to get better so I can be great, right? It was like everything needs to get better, me as well, but I'm tired of getting hit this much. So they didn't need to make like giant wholesale changes. They just needed to show publicly, because he showed publicly, that they heard him and that they were willing to address it. And my point was like, they've ranked between 26th and 32nd in terms of dollars spent on the offensive line throughout the entirety of his career.
So you thought the money solved that?
So I don't even think you don't need to go from 26 to 6. You don't need to jump into the top 10. You just need to put that in the middle somewhere, right? Just show him that, okay, we are willing to at least spend the league average amount on the offensive line. And if you're still getting buried by pressure, maybe you should look at the way you're playing, Russ. I think that's all they did.
I'm not sure if they want me to read this, but Sweat Taylor's a new sponsor for the podcast.
Huh.
If you look like me,
Yeah.
you might want some Sweat Taylor, the newest sponsor of the PFF NFL podcast. A premium menswear brand that is defining a new kind of casual. From jackets and pants to joggers and hoodies, Sweat Taylor's designs are made to seamlessly fit into your life. Moving from runway to office, office to drinks, and drinks to wherever the night takes you. Specializing in athleisure wear for men, pieces are designed with comfort and versatility in mind for every day. Wore this for 22 hours on the PFF NFL Draft Show the entire weekend. It's extremely comfortable, and it's great. And you get 25% off using the promo code PFF-SWEAT. That's PFF-SWEAT for 25% off your order at sweattailor.com. SWET Taylor.com.
Is that the outfit of choice for a man with that haircut?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Sweat Taylor with a
athleisure wear is what you wear with
a
fro.
monster fro.
Okay.
I would want to tighten this up a little bit, though. I'd like, tidy up the fro, throw on the Sweat Taylor, and hit the town. Yeah, right. I don't know. The Russ thing is hilarious.
But it's interesting how quickly that's gone away.
It just felt half-hearted. Like when Russ is like, guys, I need some help, guys. It just feels like a little bit like that.
But that's like, this is
whereas Aaron Rodgers is like, all right, I'm out.
Yeah.
And you believe it.
But that's the difference between Russ and Aaron Rodgers. Like, Russell Wilson is the most mild-mannered, meek, It's like when you watch the like behind the scenes, what do they call that? The mic'd up clips, the sound effects from the sidelines, right? And like, oh, he really is that corny in real life. Like when he's G'ing up people on the sideline for the game, it's like, wow, this is like, when you get a movie or a song or something and it's edited for radio and it's cut out like all of the offensive stuff and it's just like G-rated now. Yeah, that's Russ 24/7. So when Russ comes out and is like, hey guys, I don't want to be a bother, but I'm starting to get a little bit upset about getting hit, and it's partly on me as well. That to him is like, it's like throwing his team under the bus and hurling abuse at them for anybody else. That's the most public declaration you're ever going to get for Russ. Whereas Rodgers, is a lot more cantankerous by nature, and you're just going to be like, nah, look, I'm bouncing, I'm done.
So who's going to win this division? Because I can't, again, I'm very excited for watching this entire division unfold. Stafford and McVay. I mean, do we really think that Stafford is that big of an upgrade over Jared Goff? That it's gonna pay immediate dividends, and this offense is gonna look completely different. Jared Goff hasn't played all that well the last couple of years, but we have seen him play well in that scheme. So it's not so much is Stafford going to be better than Goff, I think, over, say, 2019 and 20. My question is, can Stafford be better than 2018 Goff? Because 2018 Goff is actually similar to Stafford's peak PFF grade. It's I'll get the exact number, but it's right in the same ballpark. So if that's the case, or is McVay going to take Stafford to a 90 graded quarterback? Is he going to turn him into whatever this potential we thought was over 10 years ago when he was the first overall pick in the draft?
That I don't think is likely to happen. So there's a few things that are at play with this dynamic, which again, I agree, makes it really interesting across the board. One, Sean McVay's offense took the league by storm when he first got a gig, was unstoppable, and then teams worked it out very quickly. The NFL generally worked it out very quickly, and then he had to show evolution. He had to show that he'd been able to move on this system and keep going to stay one step ahead of defenses so that it could thrive. Now, I think he made some changes to that defense, but it's not like a one-time thing, right? You don't just like deploy version 2.0 and then you're done. You need 3.0 and 4.0 because defenses are going to keep coming. It's an arms race. You need to keep evolving so that you're one step ahead of the defense that's going to keep evolving to shut down what you're doing. So McVay has demonstrated the ability to keep going and keep evolving the system, but he needs to show continuous development, not just like one revolution of this offense. So that is still in the background. Can McVay do that consistently long term? Because that is what separates guys like Shanahan from other people that hit the ground running and then stall.
You know that Stafford's just one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch or to evaluate. My general line is 3 or 4 games a year.
Yeah.
He is out of his mind. And he looks, everybody makes the Mahomes comparison. But like Stafford does Mahomes type things. He does the no-look stuff. We saw it last year. Red zone, tight window throws. He just has this feel about him. 3 or 4 games a year, but he's never had the consistency. Jared Goff's 2018 PFF grade, 84 plus. Stafford's never been above 82. He's been over 80 for 5 different times. So there is actually, even though I'm saying Stafford's inconsistent from what is a high-end play standpoint, the overall output since 2016 has been in the green. Again, if you're using premium stats, PFF Elite, it's in the green. It is solid. Matthew Stafford, in his era, is a borderline top 10 quarterback, and I would say Goff is closer to 15. Just as in the generalities here, where you would rank them. So I think the Rams will be better, but is that move? Is it significantly better? Are the Rams, the favorite in the NFC West? Is this match made in heaven because Stafford has never had a run game and now he's got 5 legitimate receivers if you include Tutu Atwell, who they just drafted in the 2nd round? Is this the best situation Stafford's ever been in? I don't know that it is, but I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, probably. So the first thing you've got at play is that whether Sean McVay's system can move on. The second thing is, look, there are people that defend Matthew Stafford who will say, okay, yes, he's been inconsistent. He's never realized that potential that we've seen from him. He's never had that 90 grade season that clearly he's capable of in terms of what he's able to do on any given play. On the other hand, he's never had that like offensive mastermind coach, right? He's usually been saddled with defensive-minded head coaches or guys that do not necessarily play in to putting that great situation around him and putting him in a scheme that maximizes his impact. And we were saying at the time of the trade, the great thing about this move is you're going to finally get that answer. Like, what happens when you pair Matthew Stafford up with an offensive mastermind coach like Sean McVay? So that is another factor, is can McVay's offense move on? Does McVay and that system immediately give Stafford something he's never had before, which is this, a scheme that's going to boost him above and beyond what he's able to do all by himself? So I think those are two big things at work, in addition to just like, what does the move do?
Yeah. So, and then you're talking from a scheme style. Scheme is good. Plus, Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, two of the best in the NFL, just getting open, which we know is the most valuable thing a receiver can do. Add in Van Jefferson and his speed, Deshaun Jackson, old man Deshaun and his speed when he's on the field and healthy, and then Tutu Atwell. They've got some legitimate playmakers. The offensive line last year at this time we were worried about, but they bounced back. They were fine. I mean, that is one of the best all-around offenses in the NFL. And, if Stafford did put together a top 5 season, I don't think I'd be all that surprised. I'm not expecting it, though. I'm not the Stafford apologist who thinks he's going to the Hall of Fame because he has a ton of yards. A lot of people are going to look at where he ranks 5 or 6 years from now and think he's a Hall of Famer.
Right.
But he hasn't been great throughout his career. He has been just a good, solid quarterback with awesome tools. So if he did have an awesome season, though, I would not be surprised. And then you have, Arizona with Kyler Murray. It's year 3. I think there's one big area where he still needs to improve. And maybe it might be a scheme thing. It might be a Cliff Kingsbury thing. But this is a huge year for Kingsbury with Arizona, the air raid, and the whole deal, because they've left some meat on the bone, I think, too. They've gotten a little bit better incrementally, but this is the year where they really need to take that next step.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's a huge year for both of them. Kingsbury's offense is interesting because it isn't what people expected it to be coming into the NFL. Like this idea of he was going to port over a college air raid offense and we were really going to see how that functioned at the NFL level. Like, he's backed off a lot of those things very quickly. And even in the time he's been in the NFL, again, like, the league has changed and the league has evolved. And now we're starting to see this pivot towards, those split safety looks on defense where teams are running those kind of Brandon Staley schemes, and that's what's dominating right now, as opposed to the Seattle sort of cover 1, cover 3 looks with the single high safety. So things are already changing, and again, it's the onus is now on him to not just figure out what he's doing on offense, but show an evolution to that scheme. And what's weird is that, like, they do a lot of really creative stuff in the run game. Like, they have some really interesting run plays, looks, formations, positions, all those kinds of things. Their pass game is actually very vanilla. It doesn't do a whole lot, and it doesn't cause teams that many problems with the things that they do. And, people will pull up DeAndre Hopkins, like his route tree. Like, they're not asking him to do an awful lot or line up in different places, which is something that most teams do with their top receivers, right? Is move them around a lot and try and generate favorable matchups. The Cardinals are not doing that with Hopkins. So is that an area of this offense that needs to get better, or do they just need to upgrade the players? Like, does getting a Rondale Moore and replacing Larry Fitzgerald's, bubble screen catches with Rondale Moore, someone who can actually do something devastating with them, like, does that immediately catapult it into a different stratosphere, or does he need to capture some of that creativity in the run game and deploy it in the passing game as well?
I think what you described, though, is kind of the air raid, which is it's simple concepts. It's simple passing concepts, ones that the NFL has been stealing for years essentially. But you run them more often, and then you simplify alignments as well. So I think that is where you do need to get a little bit more creative offensively. So the pass game simplicity that you mentioned, there is another world there that Kingsbury needs to take a step forward. 4th down decisions are in there as well. But you also described the run game being creative and effective, but that's also the air raid, because it's not even creativity so much as it is just the box count thing. The thing that our data has showed through the years, which is just run against lighter boxes, and yards per attempt against a 6-man box is 5.5.
Yeah,
and against an 8-man box it's 3.8. I mean, it's not crazy. It's almost a 2-yard difference. It's not that crazy to just understand that, and that's what the air raid does understand and has put their running backs in a good situation. Plus, they add Kyler Murray to the run game, which they did last year more than ever. So, I think it's a big year for them in Arizona. And then, of course, we've got the same San Francisco 49ers discussion that we've been having. It's Kyle Shanahan, it's Trey Lance, and it's a tough division for him to step right into, even though it's the best offensive system and situation, as we've said, for a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, best offensive system and situation, best, I think, proven schematic coach of the group, and best, I think, probably overall roster. Like, the 49ers, they got hit harder than any team in the NFL last season by injuries. Like, they were just absolutely destroyed, and their injuries were at the most crucial positions as well. Like, they lost their number one corner, who had been a huge part of the season before that. They lost all their receivers at some point. Like, everybody's mouth was watering heading into the season about the combination of these receivers and what they could do on the field. Like, they were never on the field together. They were all injured almost all the time. They lost quarterbacks. Like, they lost all of the important positions for most of the season. So they were just sunk. So you almost forget that, like, this was a team people expected to be challenging for the Super Bowl this time a year ago with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback, who, his baseline as a passer is probably higher than what we're going to see from Trey Lance year one, but he offered none of that rushing threat. So now you're going to see, okay, what does it look like with Trey Lance in there, and what can he do year one? The 49ers, I think, are a potential juggernaut if Trey Lance can have a decent baseline of play.
Someone in the comments, YouTube, not the ones making fun of me and all that stuff or having fun. Though somebody did ask, who has the highest PFF passing grade at the end of the year out of those 4 quarterbacks?
The 4 in the
NFC West, between Wilson, Murray, Stafford, and Trey Lance. Wilson.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Stafford 2, Murray 3, Lance 4.
Stafford 2, Murray 3. I would go the same order, except I would flip Lance and Murray.
You're flipping Lance and Murray?
Yes.
You're saying Trey Lance is going to have a higher passing grade than Kyler Murray?
Yes.
All right. Let's go. Crack research team here. Really quick. Here. What? I'm just going to look it up.
You're going to look up the future?
Well, last year, Kyler Murray's passing grade, where was it? Am I scrolling down? How far am I scrolling down here? That was close to Stafford, wasn't it? There he is. 77.2.
Yeah. Okay.
So you're saying Trey Lance, for perspective, Justin Herbert last year as a rookie was 78.6.
Mm-hmm.
We saw Baker Mayfield be right around 80 as a rookie. Whereas Joe Burrow was 74.3. If you gave him a little bit more time, he's probably in that 76, 77 range. Mm-hmm. So you're telling me in year one, Trey Lance's passing grade, let's assume Kyler Murray is the same, because it's not, let's assume he's at 77. You think Trey Lance is going to be up in that high 70s?
I think Trey Lance can put a passing grade in the high 70s within that offense. And I think there's a chance that Kyler Murray goes in the other direction if that offense doesn't take a step forward.
If Trey Lance grades in the high 70s from a pass game perspective, more perspective, in 2019, Jimmy Garoppolo, 75.7. So if Trey Lance is in that 75 to 77 range, then the Niners are a legitimate Super Bowl team again. Legitimate Super Bowl caliber team again. I don't buy it. I don't think he's going to be that good as a passer. I think you're going to see Trey Lance closer to Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard than you are going to see him to Jimmy Garoppolo in year one. In year one.
Okay.
I mean, everybody told me you're not drafting him for year one. If you're drafting for year one, you would have taken Mac Jones, right?
I don't know why that was a narrative, though. I don't see this like tremendously raw, incapable passing quarterback that needs time to learn and all this kind of stuff. I just see a guy that had some accuracy problems because he's attempted like 300 passes in his life. But he, like, in terms of actually,
that's still a thing.
But in terms of like,
because his first pass is going to be 320. Then 321. He's still in the 300s.
So he won't be tremendously accurate, but he's going to be throwing to wide the hell open targets for most of the time. and he can read a defense. Like, this is the bigger problem. If Trey Lance's 319 passes had demonstrated like this incredibly shrunk down offense that didn't ask him to read anything, that was like idiot proof, and he was still making massive mistakes left and right, okay, now I'm concerned, and I'm saying, all right, we need to sit this guy down and teach him how to play a quarterback before we put him on the field. That's not what he was showing. He showed the ability to read a defense, didn't make mistakes, was capable of making progressions in the right read, and just wasn't tremendously accurate because he doesn't have this like bank of muscle memory where it's all built up. So I think that's way better than the reverse. Like a guy that was deadly accurate but often to linebackers.
Jimmy Garoppolo?
Maybe. But like I don't see a reason that Trey Lance is going to be a bad passing quarterback in terms of what he's reading.
I don't think he's going to be a better decision maker than Garoppolo. He's not better than Garoppolo right now. He's not. I don't think Trey Lance is better
but he's
than
going to
Jimmy
be, this is the Lamar Jackson thing, right? He is going to make his own life easier in the passing game by what he does in the running game, which is something that Garoppolo wouldn't do. So let's say he's close to Garoppolo as a passing quarterback in terms of he's going to throw the ball to linebackers a little bit less. He's also going to miss open receivers a little bit more. Let's say it nets out somewhere near him, right? 4 or 5 grading points. I think you can offset that by what he does in the run game to make guys over the middle 5 yards open instead of 1.5 yards open.
Do you think he has a better year than RG3's rookie season?
No.
Okay. Just trying to see how high you are on Trey.
I mean, RG3's rookie season was one of the best seasons we've ever seen. So
you're really low on Kyler Murray, huh?
I'm low generally on what I think that offense is probably going to do. I haven't seen the evolution in that system that we've seen a little bit in McVay's system, and I'm not even particularly high on that system taking a step forward.
Don't forget our friends over at DraftKings, because big names are headlining this weekend's UFC 262 card, from Nate Diaz to Michael Chandler. There'll be no shortage of action. You have any takes on the fights?
I mean, I think Chandler will win.
Okay, there you go. DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of UFC, has a heavyweight offer for this weekend's fight. With 100-to-1 odds, one fighter will be walking away with the belt, and will you be walking away with the cash? So I guess you could take one. You suggest Chandler, 100-to-1 odds.
Yes, though obviously this is not financial advice, and
it's not.
Consult your financial.
Are you allowed
broker.
to make suggestions?
What are the official terms and conditions for that? Have you got them?
I'll have to ask George. Don't worry if MMA isn't for you. DraftKings Sportsbook offers great odds and promotions on basketball, hockey, and so much more. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable, so you can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. So download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code PFF when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 when you bet on a main card fighter to win. Place your bet. Watch the fist fly this weekend. It's just a main card fighter. That's all you need. Mm-hmm. That's code PFF to turn $1 into $100 on select main card fighters for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. And don't forget, must be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, and Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT.
You don't often see a man with a fro like that reading terms and conditions.
I am the most versatile man in the industry.
I think my favorite comment that I've seen so far in the chat from somebody called Jonathan Fulton. Manscaped is going to need to increase their motor sizes if they want an endorsement from Steve. We're going to need to up to 6,000 RPM. We're going to need to hit that, we're going to get it to 5 digits.
Can we get
over 10K?
Can we get Manscaped back on here?
Otherwise, we're just not cutting through that.
Oh, man, I got my friends texting me, making fun of me.
Yeah, that's it's to be expected, I think.
All right. Aaron Rodgers stuff?
Yeah.
Nate Diaz. I read what's in front of me. So, Aaron Rodgers, where's he going to end up?
So where this differs from the Russell Wilson thing is that I think it's a lot more difficult to piece back together. Like, Russ comes up, here's my public distress flare, and Seattle answers, why, here's our public answer that we've heard you. We trade for an offensive lineman and extend him, and everything's good. Rodgers is like, no, you burned this bridge a year ago when you drafted my replacement. And I think Albert Breer on Rich Eisen's show made the point that we made last week, which is, like, just give the guy a heads up. Like, the Vikings drafted a quarterback in the 3rd round and let Kirk Cousins know before that it might happen, right? A guy that is not supposed to be threatening him in any way, shape, or form. Just, hey, Kirk, heads up, we might take a quarterback this weekend. The Packers, Like, not only did they not draft him a first-round wide receiver, which is what everybody thought they were going to do, but they actually drafted his replacement and traded up to make it happen and didn't tell him about it. Like, just this basic lack of communication consistently breaks my brain in the NFL. You are doing this to a guy who, let's face it, has a history of being fairly sensitive when it comes to this kind of stuff, right?
Got to manage the room.
For the love of God, just tell him it's going to happen. Don't, like, even if you don't do it, there's no harm in saying, hey, Aaron, just so you don't get blindsided by this, we are looking at quarterbacks, and we really like this kid. If he's available, we might take him, right? You're still our quarterback. You're still our guy. We love you. We're trying to win a championship
Justin
together.
Jefferson's our top option.
But heads up, right? They didn't do that. They drafted his replacement, and it's like, all right, well, you're out of here next year. So Rodgers goes on the Aaron Rodgers revenge tour that we joked about, lights the league on fire, becomes MVP, and then Green Bay's like, oh, wow, this changes everything. Well, no, Aaron Rodgers is our guy for the next few years. And Rodgers is like, no, like, you made this call. You burned this bridge.
Honestly, I don't think they changed anything.
They 100% did.
I don't think they did.
They absolutely did. They went from...
He was already going to be difficult to trade before 2022. They already knew they had 2 years of Aaron Rodgers and 2 years of Jordan Love sitting, minimum.
This year...
They knew that was going to happen.
This year, they would have been looking to transition towards Jordan Love.
Absolutely.
Whether during the season, they would have been looking for reasons to make that switch, and then Rodgers would be gone next year. Now, they have been trying to say... I mean, they wouldn't be fighting this hard for Rodgers to stay if... they thought they were going to have one more year of him. They were moving to Jordan Love anyway. They would be booting him out of the building.
Because they don't want the dead money, and they know that he's still good. Yes, they knew that he was still going to be good.
But the dead money is not that much of a killer for them now because they've already accounted for everybody, right? Like, that hit is already on the roster, essentially. They're already budgeted for Aaron Rodgers. It's not like it's new money that if he disappears, they suddenly have to come up with another $30 million to squeeze under a cap. Like, they're already there. So all it does is accelerate the hit and change the fact that, okay, instead of paying him that amount of money to play for you, you're paying him that amount of money to play for somebody else. But the point is, if they hadn't changed their timeline of when they wanted Rodgers to leave, they wouldn't be fighting so hard to keep him right now, sending multiple envoys consistently all the way through the season, making all these noises. They'd just be like, well, this isn't how we wanted it to go down, but okay, here it is. And they'd be trading him already. That's not the way. Like, this 100% changed their timeline of when they wanted to boot Rodgers out of the door. And Rodgers is just saying,
I think they knew.
Well, it didn't change my timeline.
2 years. I think
I'm not having any of it.
What changed their timeline was he was going to be their starter for 2021, and then they were going to look to move on. And now it's changed it by a year. Yeah. But you're trying to say that you think Rodgers is there for 3 more years based off his performance last year? They're still going year
They want to extend him. They've offered him a new contract. I think last year completely changed Green Bay's plan in terms of this was a quarterback we were getting concerned about whether he could still get it done at this level anymore. And we've drafted his replacement, and if the decline continues...
And he completely proved them wrong, and they said,
yes,
we're all in now.
100%. We move from Rodgers to Love, and everything's good. Rodgers comes out and has the best season of his career, plays at an MVP level, shows that he can go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes over a season, and shows no signs of, like, declining. Now it's like, oh, well, that changes everything. Now we want that guy. Like, that's the guy that we had years ago who took us to the Super Bowl. That's the guy we've been looking for the last few years. So if he's still there, okay, that changes everything. That's a complete reversal of what we planned going down. But it isn't to Rodgers, because to Rodgers, you set fire to the bridge a year ago by drafting his replacement, and he's not going to allow you to simply reconstruct it because he had a season that you didn't see coming.
He's not going back, huh?
No. Not unless they fire, like, several people in the front office. And unlike other teams, I don't even know if they have the, like, organizational flexibility to do that as Green Bay with this, fan ownership structure and the board of people that need to make decisions. Like, if this was, I don't know, who's a trigger-happy owner that could just walk in there and fire half the front office? Pick one.
Jerry Jones?
Yeah, but he's GM as well, so it would be tough to fire himself.
Shad Khan?
Okay. Shad Khan could walk in there tomorrow if, Trevor Lawrence is like, I'm not playing unless these 3 front office guys are not in this building. Shad Khan could walk in tomorrow, fire those guys, give them a pink slip and say, done.
Or Tony Khan. Tony could go in too.
Right. Now, report, please.
Tony could book them in wrestling matches too.
Absolutely. But the point is, that kind of ownership could walk in there, hand 3 guys their pink slips, and the whole thing's done in a morning meeting around the boardroom, solve the problem, right? Green Bay can't do that. They need to like convene this leadership council, and half the people are on it. That's just, they can't do that. So if the thing that is going to get Rodgers back is dumping half the front office that he doesn't like, it's not happening.
So where's he going to go? We already did a PFF NFL Daily on this. We got into our predictions and everything, but Denver, Las Vegas, and San Francisco were his targets. San Francisco's got to be out at this point because of Trey Lance. I mean, I think Denver is the most obvious one here, right?
Yes. I mean, Denver have to be the team trying to make this happen. And they're also the team that we've been saying their draft doesn't make that much sense if they don't get an Aaron Rodgers, in terms of they have no answering quarterback. Their quarterbacks right now are Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater, who are both not good. So what is your plan if you're not bringing in an Aaron Rodgers? You can't possibly. I mean, look, Josh Allen did it, so it's possible. This idea of a year 3 jump where you go from not really a viable quarterback or a guy that's certainly underperforming to one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Now,
does Drew Lock even beat out Teddy Bridgewater for the starting job?
I mean, in terms of like play, if it's an open competition, you're honestly giving it to the better performer in camp? Probably not. In terms of the, like, is there any benefit to starting Teddy Bridgewater? Probably. You know what I mean? Like, if it's an honest competition, Teddy Bridgewater probably outplays him. If it's which one of these guys is there any purpose to starting? Like, there's no point in starting Teddy. Drew Lock at least has that potential that he can take a step forward. The critical difference, one of the critical differences between Lock and Josh Allen, is that Allen was at least like a rushing threat who had a ton of production on the ground and could score touchdowns that way, and was at least like keeping his head above water while he worked out how to be an elite passer. Drew Lock doesn't bring that. So Drew Lock right now is just dragging everybody down the passing game and offers nothing in the run game to like buoy it up.
The similarities, though. Look, nobody has Josh Allen's arm. Malik Willis in college at Liberty might. He might be the closest thing to Josh Allen's arm that we've seen. Nobody has Josh Allen's legitimate velocity and all that stuff, right? So Locke doesn't have that, but he's got a good arm. Mm-hmm. He can make those big-time throws, but like Allen was missing
has a lot of those.
Missing too many throws. Yeah, he's high big-time throws, but Allen's always had more plays like, you're one of the few guys that could do this, right? I mean, Drew Lock doesn't have those types of plays. He does have a high percentage of big-time throws, too many turnover-worthy plays, too many just straight-up misses. So that would be the concern. Josh Allen, I still look at as the anomaly, and I also look at, and get Bills fans on the bad side again, we still need to see more from Josh Allen, to know that is he there? Is he at this level? Remember last year at this time, we thought Lamar Jackson is just, all right, 90-plus quarterback every year. He's an MVP candidate. That's what he is. And he tapered off, right? He came back down to earth last year. So we could see some of that from Josh Allen. Either way, if Drew Lock has the ability to take a step forward, but man, I think everybody's rooting for Rodgers to Denver here, other than Packers fans.
Packers fans, Chiefs fans, Chargers fans.
There's 5 fan bases. That's it. 4 fan bases. The 3 in the AFC West that aren't the Broncos plus the Packers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of heavy rumors about I don't want to get too much into the Deshaun Watson stuff, other than we assume there's going to be some sort of penalty handed down by the NFL. And once that gets sorted.
So I was asked this on the radio today about like a Brown scheduling thing. They have Justin Field, or they have the Bears and they have the Texans in weeks 2 and 3 or 3 and 4, something like that. And it's like, they asked me essentially, what are the chances that Deshaun Watson is the starting quarterback and Justin Fields is the starting quarterback? Because that obviously dictates how interested you are in those games in terms of like rolling to the stadium, etc. I was trying to work out, when the Deshaun Watson wants out thing first surfaced, I thought that he was gone. You thought he was going to stay.
Yeah.
Does all of the stuff, all of his accusations that have come up since, does that make it more or less likely that he's still playing there? Playing less. As opposed to is there on the roster on some form of exempt list.
I think less.
You think it's less likely that he's the starting?
Yeah.
I see. I think it might be more likely that he's still on the roster.
I mean, I thought that they would resolve something to a point. I think this is more like, all right, get him out of there and get everybody a fresh start. Like, just get him out of there. Ship him out.
just
The
think
value's lower as far as like the actual trade return.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is that it's they didn't want to trade him when they were going to get like the biggest haul in NFL history. Now they're not going to get that, presumably, and it also must massively complicate any prospective new team's desire to go and get him.
Yeah, I mean, I think other teams. He gets people have predicted 8-game suspension, 1 year suspension, whatever it is. But like if the Philadelphia Eagles, there's Peter King saying he's got an inkling. It's not so much hard data, but just a feeling that he ends up in Philadelphia seems to be what a lot of people around the league are saying. There's also, say the same thing we said last year, how many teams truly need a quarterback? It changes every year. Mm-hmm. It changes. But how many teams today are like, man, not that I wouldn't want Deshaun Watson, the quarterback, but man, I'm just desperate for a quarterback. I mean, it's Denver, it's Washington, and Houston. Who else? And then Philadelphia, maybe with Jalen Hurts. There's not a whole lot of people who are like, man, we have a terrible quarterback situation. And then the Panthers, maybe, depending on what happens with Darnold. How about Darnold and Darnold versus the Jets week 1?
Yeah,
they just jumped right into it.
Also, somebody showed the point that Brady right now is like 1,100 yards behind Drew Brees in terms of yardage.
Could break it in
at the pace he had last year in terms of yards per game. He would break it against the Patriots.
Yeah, he's going to have all of the all-time records as well, obviously.
Well, yeah, because he's going to play till he's 62 years old.
He's got touchdowns. That was like Breeze was ahead of him for a while as far as the volume stats.
Yeah, but Breeze could only make it as far as 41. Brady's going to make it to 51 at least. It's not even going to be a factor.
We stopped the game every time Breeze broke these records, and Brady's just going to steal all of them. That's why he said bye to him on the field at the playoffs. Like, see you, Drew. I'm going to play with your kids one last time. Then I'm going to break your records next year when you're gone. Who are you texting?
I'm just giving the meme guy a heads up. It feels like he should be aware of this.
What do you mean giving the? Of course, meme guy's watching.
I mean, he probably is, but I'm just
He's
making
probably
sure.
Hard at work, memeing away.
Maybe. I'm just saying. Look, if anybody,
there's a lot of.
If anybody should be alerted to your current state of afroness,
if I know,
it's the meme guy.
PFF NFL podcast meme guy. There's a chance he's already got 5, and he's just weighing.
I mean, I hope he is.
Which one's
I hope he is. I'm just making sure. Look, it never.
How are you getting in contact with
belt and braces, right? It never hurts to double up and make sure. Contingency, Steve.
You have his phone number? Like, what do you?
I don't worry about it.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about?
I did have something. What just leaked out of my head? Oh, so somebody tweeted this at us that was in Bert Breer's column.
I had a lot of stuff tweeted at me.
Well, I would have thought so, yeah. In terms of why the Detroit Lions didn't trade down. First off, like in the comments in Bert Breer's article, it was like the analytics say you should always trade down. The analytics don't say that. And look, maybe they're presented in a way that does make it seem like that, but that's not what the analytics say. The analytics say that usually trading down is a good move, but it's not like you should always trade down every single pick. That's how you win. It's like, trade down where appropriate usually is a good strategy. So his point was essentially the tiers of how NFL teams saw the talent in this draft. There was like a tier 1 of the blue chip guys that we've been talking about, Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase, etc. And he was like, those guys were gone in the top 5. Yep. They went immediately. Bum, 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 bum. Blue chip, tier 1, out of there. Then he said tier 2 was a group of guys that included Penei Sewell, consensus-wise. This is like him phoning around, finding out where everybody had various people ranked. And tier 2 was included Penei Sewell, included Elijah Vera Tucker for most people, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, a few other people like that. But then it cut off where the Jets essentially traded to, right? So it was like the reason that those two moves were made, that the Lions didn't trade down and that the Jets traded up, is that Penei Sewell for most people was in tier 1 or 2, like that borderline.
Yeah.
So the Lions didn't want to trade out because they had him in their tier 1, a blue chipper.
Sure.
Don't pass on that guy. The Browns strategy, right? Never pass on a blue chip.
It was,
or whatever
yeah.
they said.
I got a lot to unpack here.
And then the Jets traded up because Vera Tucker was essentially the last guy in that tier 1 or tier 2 that most teams had, And they perceive the drop-off from those guys to the next group as being significant. And that would also tally with what the Vikings did, right? Which is trade back, even though Christian Darrisaw, a guy that we thought they were lucky as hell to have still on the board, was sitting there. They're looking at it, if this tier system through Bert's sort of amalgamation of phone calls makes sense, Darrisaw is not in that tier 2. And the jump, apparently, between the tier 2 and tier 3 is significant. So the Vikings are looking at this and saying, all right, it's a position of need, and it's a guy we didn't necessarily expect to be here. On the other hand, we don't actually think he's as good as these guys, so let's trade back. If he's still there, great. If he isn't, the difference between Darrisaw and Dylan Raduns or whoever the next tackle is in the second round is not massive. It's worth it.
I think there's just so many things at play here. First off, the thing you said about don't pass on a blue did come from the Cleveland Browns.
Yes. And
the Cleveland Browns, of all teams, would be the most analytically inclined to trade down and stick to those axioms. The point you made, there are people in the analytics community that are going through and finding these quotes and like, why didn't they trade down? Why didn't they trade down? Why didn't they trade down? And calling it a big red flag. I don't think it's as clear as day that these are all red flags. However, the concept of don't pass on a blue still comes back to your own evaluations. And I think what the analytics community would say is essentially treat your own evaluations with a grain of salt, right? And so that is kind of like the crux of the analytical argument, right? It's that you need to have the humility to say, I'm not going to rank players better than other people, right? So once you say this guy's a blue, you're saying, I know this guy's better than the next guy. Okay, well, let's take that one step further. What does better mean? So let's say Penei Sewell versus Rashawn Slater versus Christian Darrisaw. If we say Penei Sewell's in his own league and then Slater, let's say, is in his second tier and Darrisaw's in the third tier, there's two ways of looking at your evaluation. It's how good is the player, but then also how valuable is that player. So even if you're right about the Penei Sewell evaluation, can you get 80% of the production of Penei Sewell from Christian Darrisaw? Let's say all of your evaluations are right. Penei Sewell is by far the best. He's the best left tackle in this draft class, no doubt. Then it's Rashawn Slater. Then it's Christian Darrisaw. If that's the case, what does Darrisaw bring to the table in relation to Penei Sewell? It might be 80% of his production.
But it comes down to that confidence quotient that we talked about before, right? The two things work against each other in terms of, look, a lot of the data says one of the edges potentially available to teams is understanding how little they're able to actually separate players. And when it's close, to essentially take the margin and say, all right, we think that Jamar Chase is better than Devontae Smith. On the other hand, history shows there's a pretty good chance we're wrong. And if we can trade back, still get one of them and pick up extra picks, that is potentially a better way of doing it, right? Because even though we think one guy is better than the other, the chances are we're not actually correct about that. So that is pulling you in one direction. But pulling in the other direction is the idea, well, at some point that has a limit, right? And we should probably recognize that Jamar Chase is better than Nico Collins. Otherwise, what the hell are we doing here, right? We might as well just throw a dart at a board and draft that way. Like, you have to have some degree of confidence in your evaluation. Otherwise, the whole thing is just a giant waste of time. But data says that you shouldn't be too confident because people aren't good enough at it.
But I'm saying you should have confidence. You should have confidence in your evaluation. That's fine. But you should also understand the value of that, right? So the value of hitting on a wide receiver or a corner, based off our numbers, the value of hitting on those picks is just higher, right, than other positions. So Elijah Vera Tucker is a really good example. If you hit on a guard, how much is that really impacting your football team versus another position? So that's where the positional value stuff is essentially what needs to be at play here. So even if you're right and Elijah Vera Tucker is a top 10 player at the position, Wyatt Davis, the guy the Vikings got in the third round, if he's an average guard, the difference between the average guard and the elite guard is minimal year to year. and Vera Tucker had to be, the equivalent of 2 players essentially for that to be worth it for the Jets. And and the Vikings made a good move there, I think.
No, I agree. I think that's true.
Because you're playing the odds.
I just think that generally, so the overall point that Burt Breer was making is that, you can't just sort of say in a vacuum, teams should do X, Y, and Z. You have to look at how they viewed the board, right? And say that they thought that there was a significant striation between the different tiers of player.
I'll play both sides. I like the player tiers. I like that idea. You should have confidence and all that stuff. But the argument against what Breer is saying is just forget about your tiers for a minute. Forget about your tiers and just say if you threw the tiers out the window, you'd be okay. Like the Lions themselves would actually be, if the Lions had Darisaw and Wyatt Davis in exchange for Penei Sewell, chances are that's a better player.
I agree. So
as well.
That's one argument against it, is that even with this idea, you're better off just picking up extra players because of the strike rate everybody has. But the other thing is that even independent of what you could have picked up in addition, there's a real tension between data saying that you're not actually as good as you think you are in this and thinking that you should be able to tell the difference between how good a player is, right? Because fundamentally every team is out there trying to achieve the same thing, which is take X hundred players and rank them in order, right? Yeah. And say this guy is better than this guy and this guy is better than that guy, who's better than the third guy, and yada yada. But the data says you're actually really bad at doing that generally, right? Now you're probably better than the data says because ultimately everybody's able to agree on the first rounders versus the sixth rounders generally, right? So there's a degree to which selection bias is already skewing you in one direction or other. But when you're then trying so everybody's able to agree mostly on who the first rounders are. But where it gets tricky is then saying, well, there's tiers of this. So can you accurately tell the difference between a tier 1 first rounder and a tier 2 first rounder? And that's where it starts to get tricky, is if that's your backup for doing something like this, for trading up or for not trading down. If your backup for that is, well, we thought this guy was a tier 1 first rounder and the next guy is only a tier 2 first rounder, that's where I think the data starts to say you're actually not capable of getting that fine you're getting that granular into this process. We're with you that you're able to say they're both first rounders, but we're not with you that you're able to say this guy is definitively night and day better than this guy to the point where it's worth either sacrificing opportunity costs of an extra pick or actually throwing an extra pick in somebody else's direction to go get him.
The other thing at play here, I keep bringing it back to just WAR and wins. The other part is salary driven, and that's what Brad Spielberger, who was on we talked about this on the show that you missed, and then with Jason Fitzgerald, their trade chart is based more on salary as well. So Elijah Vera Tucker in their world essentially has to be worth a top 5 guard from a salary standpoint, from a value standpoint, which also makes it riskier. As a quick aside, because I watch old draft stuff, I was watching the 95 draft the other day. I sent you the message. I didn't realize it. Breaking news here on the PFF NFL podcast. The defending Super Bowl champion San Francisco 49ers traded up from 30 to 10 in that draft to get J.J. Stokes. So imagine that. They've got John Taylor. They've got Jerry Rice. Trade up for J.J. Stokes. I would have loved this move. Are you kidding me? Steve Young coming off the Super Bowl, and you're just assuring him of having these incredible playmakers for the foreseeable future. The Niners traded up from 30 to 10. Imagine the Super Bowl. This is the Chiefs, right? A couple of years ago, trading up to go get Jerry Jeudy or Henry Ruggs or whatever, Justin Jefferson. Trading up to go get another incredible weapon. So the Niners make this power move. They trade next year's first rounder and a third and a fourth. Next year's first rounder goes to the Cleveland Browns, who turned into the Baltimore Ravens. The pick that they traded was 26 overall in 1996, and I told you who it was. Ray Lewis. How about that?
Yeah, J.J. Stokes doesn't exactly pan out, and then a year later in the third round, you get T.O.
And you get T.O. as well. Well, I mean, that's the take shots at receiver, because you never know.
Well, it's just, again, it backs up this idea of, look, you're just
the risk of trading
you're not good enough at this to be able to make those kind of sweeping moves you have too much. That's too much confidence.
And
in
that
your
was the
ability.
best organization in football, and that was against their nature. They had the interview with Carmen Policy.
But it happens to everybody.
It's against their nature.
It happened to the 49ers. It happened to the Patriots when N'Keal Harry was the guy that, that I think is what the analytics is really pushing. It's not that you should always trade down because that's the best move every single time. It's that you should have a degree of awareness of how good you are at what you're doing, right? Which is not to say that you suck at it, because you're able to a reasonable degree of certainty to say this guy's a first rounder, this guy's a fourth rounder, this guy's undrafted. And everybody's vaguely on the same page with that stuff. So it's not like you're way better than if I just gave you a list of players and said randomly select them, right?
Yeah.
We can all agree that there is a purpose to scouting as opposed to just randomly drafting players from a 3,000 name list. Where it gets different is you're not good enough to be able to get so granular at it that you should have more confidence that you know this guy is good versus everybody else. That is where you start to screw the thing up and you make moves that cost you down the line. So whether it's the 49ers trading up like half the first round to go get a guy who wasn't good, and then a year later you draft a Hall of Famer in the third round, whether it's the Jets jumping up to get the last guy of the tier 2 players, whether it's the Lions not trading down because they want the last of the tier 1 guys. Like, you just all the information says that is having too much confidence in your ability to get so granular and separate these players.
So, yeah, it's well said. I think the other place where I think teams are confident, I just want to wrap it up with this. I listened to some of those post-draft press conferences, still working through them here and there. You get like little nuggets here and there. So the Chris Ballard one, I love listening to him speak because he's pretty honest about stuff. Every team talks about character. Every team. What now?
It's just the aliens thing cracks me up.
Oh, that's good, yeah.
What's that guy's name? The lunatic from the Aliens show.
Renner's out there.
The Illegal Aliens? No, what is it? Ancient Aliens. The Ancient Aliens guy whose name completely escapes me. It's you on the left and the Ancient Aliens guy on the right.
There's a lot of memes out there. I don't think poor meme guy is just.
So I always say this.
Competition now.
I tweeted this out years ago, right? That's like, even if you had the Ancient Aliens guy, let's say you actually had cast iron proof, you had the Roswell body in your basement or whatever. You had categorical, undeniable proof of aliens living amongst us and all this kind of stuff, right? If you rocked up with that haircut, nobody would believe you. Like, you can't take that seriously. That's you right now. Like, it doesn't matter what you're saying. Nobody's going to take it seriously.
You can't take me seriously?
No, look at you.
I'm giving you
like
some
Sideshow
incredible
Bob.
NFL analysis. I was going to get into character and
I haven't seen that
Colts
one
way.
yet. Nobody's given me a Sideshow Bob Photoshop.
Don't encourage people.
Stepping on a rake or something like Sideshow Bob?
Don't encourage anyone.
Mike, you're in there. There's those things where you can put like the face on the moving GIF of Sideshow Bob smacking himself in the face.
Can
of the
we wrap
rake.
the show? The Fro Show's winding down now. It's been fun.
Why were we looking for a title? We could have just named it the Fro Show.
The Fro Show. We'll try that audio version. See if people listen. Anyway, every team feels like they've cracked the code on character. It is unbelievable. This guy loves football. Is it even an edge anymore to draft a guy that loves football? Because I'm only through a few press conferences. If I make it to all 32, I promise all 259 players that were drafted love football. Got a football guy. Love football. It's not even an edge anymore. Everybody loves football. But it is funny. But Ballard and the Colts, to their credit, have stuck to their style, and they've had good success with it. So even if we gave him them a lower draft grade, then whatever. But he just says, it is easy to find talent. It is not easy to find talent plus character. And they stay with their method of getting Colts type of players. And it's worked pretty well over these last couple of years. But Kwity Paye is the latest. I think Kwity Paye will be fine. Deo Odiengo, their second rounder out of Vanderbilt, battling injury and all that stuff. So he was a bit of a stretch on our board because of the injury, but we'll see. It was just, I like listening to Ballard because he just sticks with this. We need players that we trust that play our style of ball.
But also,
they've stuck with that.
Almost everybody says that.
They do,
right? It's like the important thing is character and identifying the guys that you really want. Now, I guess you can question how many of them actually do it.
And I'm making the same mistake, right? Because Ballard has this recent track record, right? And then I listen to Mayock talk about Alex Leatherwood. and he's saying the same stuff.
That's
You
what
know,
I'm saying,
I talked
yeah.
to Alex on the phone, and he said, "I don't care, coach. I'll play anywhere," and I love that.
Yeah.
You know, and you'll love this too. He was talking about Nate Hobbs, one of the corners that they drafted. We love him, versatile, inside, outside. All I needed to see was his pro day. Once he ran in the 4.4s, I was good, or whatever he ran, 4.5. Once he saw that, he was good. What about that as a process, right? Like I love this guy as a football player. I need to see the pro day. I need to see this. I need to see that.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the concern, is that like everybody essentially says this. So the question is like how much when if everybody screws up still, how much of it is because they deviated from what they're saying? Like, we really love football plus character guys, but then a Tyreek Hill comes along with a fairly horrific off-field history, and we go, well, yeah, but he's Tyreek Hill. Look at what he does, so screw it. And you draft a bunch of those guys, and then the whole thing blows up in your face, and you're still preaching this idea of what you really want is character and all those kinds of things, and they're just not doing that. Or how much of it is everybody's searching for these character guys, and ultimately that isn't really that important. Like, if everybody's searching for the same thing, sure, character's great, but the bottom line is you want a Tyreek Hill because the guy changes every game he's a part of. So to a certain extent, character has to take a seat.
That becomes your edge sometimes. If you, I keep coming back to diversifying the portfolio, and I think the Patriots did that well throughout the years, right? They took some shots on people that had perceived character issues, whatever you want to say about Randy Moss and Ocho Cinco and Corey Dillon, or guys that just wore out their welcome in previous places. You take chances. Some work out, some don't. But the payoff, they're uneven bets. So you take those chances. And if your foundation is good, you can risk it. You good, man? Good show?
I'm outstanding.
I think it was a good show. What?
Nothing. Just,
I gotta,
it
fades a little bit over time. Gotta pick it back out again.
Yeah,
Thanks to everybody. Thanks to
a real
everybody who
shame.
made this happen. People are still donating, by the way, over to Heritage House. Got another like $5 while we've been on air. I just saw. Yeah. Just saying. Yeah, every bit helps. It's great.
Giorgio Tsoukalos is the name of that dude with the Ancient Aliens lunatic.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you're a little bit like him.
Yeah, same guy. Same guy. Thanks to everybody for tuning in, especially here on YouTube, or if you just tuned into YouTube. Sorry about that. Oh, breaking news. Titans have signed Caleb Farley. What a great signing.
Yeah.
I'm vowing right now, I'm going to quote tweet great signing on every one of these.
Oh, God.
Great move.
Are you going to, can you make the fro your Twitter avatar?
Why?
Why? Because it's hilarious and better than whatever you have there at the moment.
I like that one. That was from our first TV show back in 2014.
Right,
I
but
like my regular hair.
it's had its day. Now you can put the fro up there.
We'll see. We'll see if I have a good.
Or you could put that up there. The fro, your fro picture.
That one. So Neil even said this one wasn't enough, and I got news for you, Neil. Your son made it. So tell Ethan. No, it's good. I think that's good.
That's outstanding.
But we can poof it out more.
Oh, yeah?
Lose a little bit of the beard, probably.
Even bigger?
Yeah, I could probably poof it out more.
Okay.
It's a little scragglier.
We need to work on I mean, we both have this problem, but you need to work on the hairline. That's like an old hairline.
Stop with the hairline.
I'm just telling you. The worst thing that can happen to you is you become one of these people that refuses to acknowledge it, right? And then like 5 years into the routing of the hairline, you're like, you're still fighting, right? You're like, who's the dude
LeBron
from
James?
No, the dude from Kingpin. Crap, what's his name? Big Earn McCracken, right?
Yeah.
Where it's just round and round and round, and then eventually, like you're exerting yourself with the bowling, and the whole thing busts loose. You don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be Big Earn. You have to have some realism and
all right, well,
look yourself in the face and realize what's happening.
So we'll take any sponsorship opportunities. If you've got if you've got hairline help, if you have anything for Sam, or if you have anything for fro maintenance, we're all ears. You ever Google fro maintenance?
I haven't.
You just don't realize how difficult it is to. Your hair's pretty knotted when you haven't done this for 8 to 10 years. It's pretty knotted.
I would imagine it is. Yeah,
it's rough.
No, I've never had to look into that.
But I need to up my equipment. Maybe we'll do this again. Maybe we'll make it an annual thing. Never know. But appreciate everybody. Appreciate everybody who donated to the GoFundMe. I'm going to cut that check to Heritage House. Do I need to prove that or anything? I know there's been some sketchy stuff out there. I don't want to.
You do what?
There are people who are sketchy, collecting money and stuff like that.
Keep it. Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to make sure.
Yeah,
that
can you
people
get
don't
one of
think
those?
we never-
Can
we
you
would
get
ever
one of
do
those
that.
giant comedy fake checks?
Should I do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think that proves it any more than anything else. It just means you had.
What if it's like a real check?
pen.
I'll show a real check. Or
Yeah,
like
we'll
a
go to
real
the bank and then
PayPal
go to
transfer.
the bank and ask if they can make the real one 8 foot wide. That's all you need.
There we go. Anyway, we'll make that donation this week. Appreciate it. All right, guys. That's it. PFF NFL podcast. We'll be back here. You'll be back here next week.
Yeah.
I'm taking a break.
You'll be trying to hem that fro back in.
This might take a couple days.
Yeah.
It's going to be uncomfortable in Florida humidity. It's not good. Not good in humidity. It's very uncomfortable. It's like an extra pillow. You sleep on it, though. It's like a pillow, and you don't need a pillow.
Oh, that's great.
Get your fro.
And people say there's no reason to do it.
I know. I'm just thinking of the benefits. Thinking of the benefits right now. All right. Wrap it up. We're out. Wave Sam.
See ya.
See you guys next week.
Bye-bye.